This is Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, the venue for the Super Bowl, with a maximum capacity of 71,000 spectators. It looks so vast and crowded, doesn't it? If you multiply that scene by 10, you'll get an idea of the terrifying scale of the 771,000 homeless people wandering across the United States. 771,000 people, a number even larger than the population of the largest city in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But unfortunately, this is not the population statistics of a bustling city with skyscrapers or vibrant neighborhoods. This is an invisible city stretching from the east coast of New York to the west coast of Los Angeles, from public parks to underbridges, abandoned awnings to underground tunnels. That's where hundreds of thousands of people are existing on the margins of society. Veterans who once served their country, families who lost their homes due to soaring living costs, and children who have never slept in a warm room. Is this the end of the dream of prosperity, opening a bad ending for the era that America was once proud of? On today's journey, join us as we board a train that crosses America to confront the dark corners of the streets that few dare to mention. Are you ready to face it? Let's get started right now. Skid Row is probably no stranger to Americans. However, every time this place is mentioned, it's like touching an open wound that no one wants to face and bandage. It's no exaggeration to say that Skid Row is considered the largest slum in the United States. Within an area of about 50 blocks, there are over 3,800 homeless people crammed together, a number equivalent to an entire small town. Even more frighteningly, over 70% of them have to live entirely outdoors, without temporary shelter, without any support or minimum assistance. This place is like a reservoir of forgotten lives, where all the dark corners that Hollywood wants to hide are dumped here. Few people know that Skid Row was originally a gathering place for immigrant laborers, particularly railroad and dock workers. But from the 1950s to the 1970s, when the Los Angeles city government implemented urban renewal projects, a large number of low-cost boarding houses were demolished. While neighboring districts were cleaned up for commercial development, the poor and mentally ill were pushed into Skid Row, as if it had become a giant dumping ground, where the city discarded what was considered a burden on modern society. Living conditions in Skid Row are harsher than even in post-apocalyptic science fiction films. The entire area only has 9 public toilets, serving over 2,000 people. Even the most basic items, soap, toilet paper, or just a clean stream of water, suddenly become precious. In such an environment, it's no surprise that infectious diseases like HIV, hepatitis A, and hepatitis C continue to spread silently. Life here is more fragile than ever. A report by LA County states that, on average, at least 5 homeless people collapse on the streets each day and never wake up again, mostly due to dangerous products. In winter, when nighttime temperatures drop, many people struggle to the harshness of the weather right on the sidewalk, wrapped only in a thin blanket. Can you believe it? In Skid Row, there's an emergency call to the police, ambulance, or fire department every 7 seconds. Every day, hundreds of 911 calls are made, from tent fires, overdoses, and fights to bodies collapsing on the street. That's what makes Skid Row one of the hottest areas in the United States, where the sirens of ambulances and police cars blare incessantly, day or night. What's scary is that Skid Row almost operates like a separate world, with its own underground laws. This area is not homogeneous, but is divided into many small zones controlled by spontaneous groups. There's a group calling themselves Family, who specialize in protecting tents, dividing sleeping areas, and deciding who gets to set up their tent where. In return, those living in the area must obey the law or contribute with money or food. The seemingly simple unwritten rules, not taking someone else's spot, having to ask permission when setting up a tent, having to queue for food, were enforced with violence. Those who violate the rules may be beaten, driven away, or even lose their shelter. The government barely intervened, or was forced to accept it as an unwilling, self-governing order, because they themselves were powerless in the face of the complexity here. A police officer who regularly patrols Skid Row admitted, "I've never seen anything so horrifying. Everything here is beyond our control." Skid Row is not just a slum. It is a mirror reflecting the darkest aspects of modern American society. This place shows how bright the Los Angeles halo can be and how dense the darkness is right beneath it. Is America accepting the existence of marginalized people, considering them a necessary price to maintain its image of prosperity? And if the generation that has spent their lives working, fighting, and believing in the American dream is still left behind in the heart of the city, will that dream be strong enough to support the next generation in the years to come? If Skid Row is a symbol of congestion and neglect, then the Tenderloin reveals another paradox, a valley of medical waste right in the heart of the Golden City, where light and shadow coexist on every street corner. The Tenderloin, an area located right in the heart of San Francisco, spans approximately 50 blocks. This place is known as one of the hottest spots for street crime, homelessness, and public health crises. On the streets, temporary tents are erected side by side. Sidewalks are littered with trash, including dangerous medical supplies that have been used many times. Every morning, urban sanitation workers have to clean up to prepare for a new day, but just a few hours later, the chaotic scene repeats itself. Small shops have to keep their goods locked up. Even the most ordinary items are stored behind thick glass. Can you believe it? Not only humans, but even a can of Spam is not safe at Tenderloin. Many people park their cars on the street with notes attached that say, "Nothing valuable inside," as a helpless self-defense against car break-ins and theft. But Tenderloin isn't just darkness. It is also home to thousands of immigrant families, with over 3,000 children growing up in these narrow streets. Mixed in with them is a community of people who have experienced homelessness and are now living in long-term supportive housing. Herein lies a paradox. Amidst the chaos, community life still persists. A glimmer of light amidst the dark hues. A formerly homeless person who once lived on the streets of the Tenderloin, now recovered, shared. In reality, the percentage of people on the streets experiencing health and mental health difficulties is much higher than the statistical figures. I believe that the majority of those there need sustainable medical and mental health support. This is not just a shared, personal narrative, but also a vivid memory of an unforgettable golden era. One of the paradoxes in the Tenderloin is the open existence of underground networks. It's not for nothing that this place is nicknamed the Walmart of vices, as illegal activities often exploit the homeless as a shield. These individuals are entrusted with holding items and facing risks on behalf of the organizers. Yet the only thing they often receive in return is temporary support, not enough to change their lives. In that game, no matter how the rules change, the underdog always becomes the most vulnerable piece. The irony is that Tenderloin has its own police station, but limited resources force the force to prioritize serious cases. It was that very vacuum that created the conditions for parallel underground orders to exist. Despite this, there are still efforts from the community and government to restore balance, from providing temporary housing and healthcare services to community reintegration projects. How could a wealthy city, once hailed as a center of innovation and freedom, allow such a paradoxical area to exist right in its heart? If a wealthy city like San Francisco is powerless against the wounds within its own heart, what future awaits vulnerable communities across the United States? On the Las Vegas Strip, the neon lights and extravagant billboards never seem to turn off. Tourists crowded in front of the billion-dollar casino, with a long line of limousines parked under the arches of the magnificent hotels. But just by stepping over a manhole cover, a storm drain, or under a bridge, reality immediately flips. Beneath that glittering facade are hundreds of miles of tunnels where many people seek temporary shelter, trying to arrange a quiet life, isolated from the world above. For those stepping down for the first time, the darkness, humidity, and the sound of traffic echoing through the concrete bring a sense of dizziness. Another city that almost no one sees, yet exists right beneath the city that never sleeps. The stories here often begin with a very ordinary long slide. A family event, an injury, a debt, a broken job. Some people used to be chefs at a large resort, some drove service vehicles, and some left their hometowns to seek opportunities, but got lost. During the day, they searched for basic necessities. At night, they returned to the bunker compartments with a small flashlight, a blanket, and a few items cobbled together to create a home. Tunnels are not safe places. Some sections are easily flooded during heavy rain, while others are damp and cold year-round. But for those with no other options, the feeling of seeking shelter from the wind and sun is also a form of refuge. From the ground, the strip still operates like a sophisticated entertainment machine. Music, lights, stages. Below, life is measured by the rhythm of footsteps in the water, by sensitivity to sounds from the highway, by the habit of packing things in the dark. Some people say that time is hard to measure here because they don't see the sun for days. Others are good at finding discarded items and turning them into useful objects. Some people also expressed that what they lacked most wasn't belongings, but personal documents, a working phone number, or a door leading to a stable recovery program long enough to start over. The story beneath the streets of Las Vegas also reflects a familiar paradox in many American cities. As urban order regulations become increasingly strict, the homeless are more easily pushed further away, deeper down, into the shadows that the majority of the public does not see. Above, glass buildings reflect fireworks. Below, people get used to the sound of rain falling through the cracks in manhole covers. Above, the billboard reminds us of elegant performances and dinners. Below, a folding chair tent can also become a living room corner. Everything intertwined into a reality difficult to name. A two-story city, each level with its own language, its own laws, and its own rhythm. Nevertheless, there are still hands reaching out in the darkness. Some local organizations are partnering with people who have overcome homelessness to guide others. Paperwork, temporary housing, health counseling, access to treatment, and connecting with first-time employment. Not everyone is immediately ready to trust. Caution is a survival skill. But each patient conversation, each appointment kept, can become the first link in a journey back to solid ground. If an avenue can illuminate the entire desert sky, why doesn't that light reach the people just a few steps away? And if the city that never sleeps still leaves some of its residents in the dark, what do we, as a community, need to change first? Our perspective, our policies, or the way we listen? Right under the shadow of the trains running along Kensington Avenue, Philadelphia presents two contrasting faces. During the day, the small markets and grocery stores remain open. At night, the sidewalks transform into rows of makeshift tents, with medical waste mixed in with plastic bags and rain-soaked cardboard boxes. The media once sensationalized this place as the zombie capital, but that label belies the real people behind it. Those who once had jobs, families, and beautiful memories, but are now trapped in a cycle of deviation, lacking housing, with healthcare disrupted and socially isolated. We don't use that label for people. We only borrow it to point out the cruelty of prejudice. Kensington, once a bustling textile manufacturing district, has changed its face as factories closed and jobs disappeared. The shops that have survived are holding on with roller shutters, cameras, and locked shelves. Numerous local reports have documented years-long homelessness and public health crises. It is estimated that a significant portion of the homeless population in this area experiences mental health disorders. On the sidewalks, some people have only just slipped off the edge of life, after a medical bill, an accident, or a marital breakdown. Others have been walking for a very long time in the dark tunnel of shame. The city's rhythm continues, but here time lingers in defensive gazes, in backpacks clutched tightly to chests like final possessions. The social safety net has been deployed, but gaps still leave many people falling through. Temporary shelters are sometimes full. Waiting lists for supportive housing are long. Outpatient treatment is intermittent due to lack of documentation, transportation, or companions. Law enforcement is present, but thin staffing forces them to prioritize serious incidents. Superficial cleanup scenes often only shift the problem from one street corner to another. An initiative called Kensington Pathways could harness the power of public-private partnerships. Comcast, a Philadelphia-based company, is providing the digital connectivity infrastructure and basic digital skills training for participants. Independence Blue Cross, in collaboration with Penn Medicine and Jefferson Health, is organizing mobile care sites to provide integrated mental health treatment, counseling, and support. If we easily give an avenue a hurtful name, have we forgotten the people standing shivering right under that sign? If a city is only truly strong when it can lift up its weakest members, where will Philadelphia and each of us begin lifting? From the rooftops, healthcare, or the way we see each other? Right in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, just a few blocks from Times Square, 8th Avenue stretches like a crack right through the heart of America. Once praised for its brightly lit theaters, bustling restaurants, and sleepless streets, it is now associated with a starkly different image. Long lines of people without stable housing, huddled in front of closed shops or setting up temporary shelters under brightly lit billboards. For tourists, the sight is stunning. For long-time residents, it evokes a sense of both helplessness and nostalgia for a New York that once promised more opportunities. Those who can no longer afford housing are often forced into cramped temporary shelters or end up on the streets. In that whirlwind, this street became a clear illustration of the urban paradox, a wealthy city that cannot guarantee housing for all its residents. An initiative called New York Avenue Forward could be formed by mobilizing public-private cooperation. Verizon, a major New York-based brand, can support connectivity infrastructure and digital skills training programs for those in the process of reintegration. Mount Sinai Health System and New York Presbyterian could deploy mobile healthcare teams focused on mental health treatment and counseling. Starbucks and regional retail chains can participate in providing daily meals and creating part-time job opportunities during the recovery phase. Non-profit organizations like the Coalition for the Homeless will coordinate housing and monitor recovery progress. If even an avenue in the heart of Manhattan can become a dark zone for those left behind, how many other street corners across America are silently bearing the same pain? And can a city truly be considered prosperous if thousands of its residents still have to sleep on concrete floors right under the bright neon lights? Beneath the elevated highway, overpasses, and the constant roar of traffic day and night, there exists an invisible city that most Americans have never set foot in. It's called by many names, but the name The Jungle best evokes the feeling of wildness, chaos, and danger. There are no official maps marking this place, but it exists right in the heart of bustling cities, snaking beneath highway overpasses. Here, instead of lush green forests, there are shacks patched together from plastic tarps, scrap wood, and discarded tires. The sound of birdsong was replaced by the roar of trucks, and the scent of greenery gave way to the acrid smell of smoke, fire, and dampness. The jungle formed as an unintended consequence of the wave of urban development. As housing prices rise relentlessly and social housing policies fail to keep pace with demand, the most vulnerable, manual laborers, the unemployed, and the elderly with insufficient pensions, are forced to leave the city center. Where are they going? Many people seek out the empty spaces under overpasses, where no one is in control, and where a small shack can still provide shelter from the rain and sun. Gradually, those patches of land transformed into an artificial forest, an unwilling community. For passers-by, the jungle evokes fear. News reports about dangers and violent incidents make the public even more cautious. But if we slow down and listen, we'll see many lives simply swept off their normal trajectories. A construction worker who lost his job after an injury. A single mother evicted from her apartment because she couldn't pay rent. A veteran with war-related disabilities who couldn't find support. They didn't choose the jungle as a home, but were driven there because they had no other option. If even highway bridges, symbols of progress and connection, conceal a world of darkness beneath them, can we truly call ourselves a civilized society? And when the light from above cannot reach the people living right at its feet, what is the first responsibility of a city toward its most vulnerable residents? Looking back at history, Americans over 55 still vividly remember the decades when stable jobs, affordable housing, and close-knit communities were the cornerstones of the American dream. But as we enter the 21st century, those memories seem to fade further and further away. In many cities, the streets are filled with makeshift tents, and the homeless huddle right under the shadow of brightly lit skyscrapers. The question isn't just why 771,000 people are homeless, but also, how did a nation once considered prosperous allow this to become the face of the modern city? Overlapping socioeconomic factors create the current situation. The cost of living is rising faster than wages, making many previously stable middle-class families struggle. Affordable housing policies, despite being included in many plans, have not kept pace with the rate of urbanization. The healthcare system, especially mental health care, leaves many gaps, causing not a few people to fall through the safety net. Urban regulations, aimed at maintaining order, sometimes become barriers, pushing vulnerable people further away instead of opening up opportunities for reintegration. But within that dark picture, there are still signs of hope. In many cities, small community initiatives are testing new models. Transitional housing combined with healthcare services, employment programs specifically for the formerly homeless, and peer support networks to help them avoid isolation on their recovery journey. It is important that these efforts are scaled up and sustained long enough, with coordination from the government, the private sector, and civil society. An initiative called the American Renewal Path could be formed with the participation of Walmart, CVS Health, and Habitat for Humanity, creating sustainable, affordable housing projects. If this series of solutions is implemented continuously and transparently, it will not only help reduce the number of homeless people, but also restore public trust in a system that was once a source of national pride. If the American dream was once built on the foundation of a roof, a job, and a community, what are we waiting for to restore those three pillars? And will future generations inherit a land of opportunity? Or will it only be a nostalgic memory of the previous generation? We have traveled through the darkest streets of America, where 771,000 people are living in homelessness. Behind every number is a face, a story, a dream that was once unfinished. These images not only evoke pain, but also serve as a stark reminder of the widening gap between a prosperous past and today's fragile reality. So we must ask ourselves, if even the cities that once symbolized the American dream are struggling in the dark, what will be left for future generations? And can a country truly be called prosperous when hundreds of thousands of people still cannot find a home to return to? If you empathize with these stories, please share the video so that many others can see the reality we often forget. Don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts and experiences, because it's those very shares that can spark the necessary dialogue for change. And if you want to continue joining us on our journey to explore the hidden corners of American society, please like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Only when we speak out together can darkness be illuminated by light. The content in this video is compiled from various sources, public reports, and real-world observations. Some details may be general or not absolutely verified and are used to illustrate the overall picture of the social issue. The video is not intended to defame any individual, organization, or government, nor is it meant to encourage or promote negative behaviors. Our sole objective is to evoke empathy, create space for reflection and dialogue, thereby raising public awareness about a reality that deserves more attention.